You don't have to be born rich to think rich. But if you don't learn to think rich, you'll stay poor, even if someone hands you a fortune. The truth is, money doesn't change who you are. It reveals who you are. Give a poor thinker $1 million, and they'll be broke again in 5 years. Give a rich thinker $100, and they'll find a way to turn it into a fortune. See, the difference between the rich and the poor isn't in their paycheck, it's in their philosophy. The rich ask, how can I make my money grow? The poor ask, how can I spend it? The rich look for opportunity, the poor look for security. The rich build systems, the poor look for salaries. And the great irony, most people work harder to stay poor than the rich do to stay rich. Because the rich built habits that do the work for them. If you want to change your income, you must first change your mind, because the mind is where all wealth begins. So today, I'm going to show you how to think like the rich, how to build the money habits that separate success from struggle. Because once you start thinking right about money, money will start thinking right about you. Let's talk about one of the greatest differences between those who build wealth and those who chase it. Time perspective. Most people think about the weekend. The wealthy think about the decade. The poor often ask, how can I make it to Friday? While the rich ask, where will I be in 5 years? That's not arrogance, that's vision. It's not that one group is smarter than the other. It's that one group has learned to stretch time. They understand that fortune doesn't favor the fast. It favors the patient, the planners, and the people who can delay gratification long enough for compound interest to work in every area of their life. When I was young, I used to think money was the issue, that the problem was not having enough. But later, I learned that money is only a reflection of thinking. Poor thinking leads to poor pockets. If your thoughts are short-term, your results will be short-lived. You can't build a skyscraper with the blueprint of a tent. I remember one of my mentors telling me, don't just work for the day, work for the decade. That changed everything for me. It taught me to stop asking, what can I get now? And start asking, what am I building that will serve me later? You see, wealth is not an event, it's a process. And every process requires time. The poor often exchange time for comfort. The rich exchange time for compound growth. While one group spends money to feel good today, the other invests money to create freedom tomorrow. The poor think in moments, the rich think in movements. And this difference in perspective is what builds empires or destroys them. The rich design their days around a larger destination. They see time as their greatest capital, and every decision as an investment toward that vision. They don't waste their minutes because they know minutes compound into fortunes. When the poor say, I can't wait for Friday, the rich say, I can't waste my Friday. The rich don't see the weekend as an escape, they see it as a launch pad, a time to learn, to build, to plant seeds that will pay them in the years ahead. Now, this doesn't mean you have to sacrifice all your joy today. It simply means you have to delay unnecessary comfort for meaningful growth. The rich aren't joyless, they just understand timing. They know that short-term sacrifice builds long-term satisfaction, while the poor buy pleasure, the rich buy purpose. So start thinking longer than your next paycheck. Start planning beyond your next month. Ask yourself, if I make this decision today, will it bring me peace or pressure in 5 years? Every purchase, every habit, every choice, it's either serving your future or stealing from it. Wealth isn't about how much you earn, it's about how far ahead you think. And the beautiful thing is, you can start right now, begin by setting 5, 10, and 20-year goals. Don't just dream about what you want, plan who you must become to get there. Learn to delay a little pleasure for a bigger payoff. And before every financial move, pause and ask, is this for my comfort or my future? That one question can rewrite your destiny. Because when you start thinking long-term, you stop chasing and start creating. That's the mindset that separates the wealthy from the weary. And that's how you move from surviving Fridays to shaping forever. Time, that's the one thing we all get equally, yet it separates the rich from the poor more than any other resource. The poor spend time, the rich invest it. The poor see time as something to fill, the rich see it as something to multiply. You see, time is the great equalizer, 24 hours for all of us. But what you do with those hours determines everything about your destiny. The question isn't how many hours you work, it's how many hours are working for you. When I was younger, I used to think the answer was simply to work harder. If I put in more hours, I'd make more money, right? But I eventually realized if effort alone created wealth, every construction worker and waitress would be a millionaire. The truth is, you can work yourself to death and still end up broke if you never learn to separate labor from leverage. The rich understand that time is not for trading, it's for investing. They build systems that keep earning while they're sleeping, resting, or even traveling. When I started in business, I was working 16 hours a day, chasing commissions, running from one client to another. I thought that was productivity. But one day my mentor asked me, what happens to your income if you stop working tomorrow? I said, it stops too. He smiled and said, then you don't own a business, you own a job. That hit me hard. It made me realize that the rich think differently. They use their energy to build systems, not cycles. They invest time up front to create processes that free them later. The poor often use their time to escape scrolling, watching, relaxing, because they're exhausted from trading it all day. The rich, however, use free time for expansion. They read, strategize, study, or rest with intention. They know every hour spent on growth is an hour that compounds into opportunity. The poor say, I don't have time. The rich say, I must find time. Because they understand time doesn't appear. It's created through discipline and focus. And here's the most powerful shift. The rich guard their time the way others guard their money. They delegate low-value tasks. They automate the repetitive ones. They don't let distractions steal their hours because they know hours are the seed of everything valuable. They'd rather invest an hour learning a new skill that earns forever than spend that same hour escaping the very life they wish to change. If you want to think like the rich, start tracking where your time goes. Every day, ask yourself, did I spend this day or invest it? Start eliminating what doesn't multiply your results. Endless entertainment, gossip, procrastination. All of it costs you more than money ever could. Replace those hours with learning, building, connecting, and creating. And then build something that keeps paying you even when you're not there. Write a book, create a digital product, build a small business, invest in stocks, property, or systems that don't need your constant presence. At least one stream of income must run without your daily effort. That's how freedom begins. So don't just count your money, count your minutes. Because how you use your time decides how your money grows. And if you keep trading all your hours for dollars, one day you'll run out of both. But if you learn to make time your servant, not your master, you'll discover that freedom isn't earned by working harder, it's earned by working wiser. Remember, time is wealth in disguise, and the rich never waste it. Most people never become wealthy because they play life and money like a game they're afraid to lose. They cling to safety, save cautiously, and hope life won't take too much from them. But the rich, they play to win. They understand that the game of money rewards courage, guided by wisdom, not fear disguised as caution. You see, The poor often think that avoiding risk keeps them safe, but what really keeps them poor is not risk, it's ignorance. They don't lose because they take chances. They lose because they never learned how to take smart ones. When I was starting out, I met people who would say, I'm just being careful. But if you look closer, it wasn't carefulness, it was fear. Fear of loss, fear of rejection, fear of failure. And fear has an interesting habit. It builds walls where doors should be. It convinces you that staying where you are is safer than growing, that holding what you have is wiser than building more. But let me tell you something. Inflation doesn't respect your fear. Time doesn't slow down because you hesitate. And opportunities don't wait for courage to show up. The rich know that you can't avoid risk. You can only manage it. They study before they act. They prepare before they leap. And because of that, they grow where others shrink. Before they invest, they learn. Before they buy, they research. Before they partner, they ask questions. They know that knowledge turns risk into strategy. And strategy, my friends, is the bridge between fear and fortune. When I was a young man, I was afraid to invest. I thought money in the bank was safety. But one day a mentor told me, if your money isn't working, it's dying. That line changed everything for me. I started reading, learning, studying markets, and understanding how money flows. I realized I didn't have to gamble. I just had to grow in understanding. You see, risk feels dangerous when you're unprepared. But once you study the game, you stop reacting emotionally and start responding intelligently. Now, the poor often diversify emotionally. They scatter their money around, thinking that having a little bit of everything keeps them safe. But diversification without understanding is just organized confusion. The rich diversify intelligently. They know why each asset is in their portfolio, what role it plays, and how it connects to the whole picture. Every move is made with purpose, not panic. And when fear shows up, because it always does, the rich don't retreat. They listen. They let fear be a signal, not a stop sign. Fear says, prepare more, learn deeper, plan smarter. It doesn't say, run away. The difference between fear that freezes you and fear that fuels you is knowledge. The rich use fear to sharpen their awareness, while the poor use it to justify inaction. The truth is, security doesn't come from avoiding loss. It comes from building capacity. Every person who built wealth did it by mastering risk, not escaping it. They stepped into uncertainty, armed with preparation, persistence, and patience. That's the formula. Not blind bravery, but calculated courage. So if you want to think like the rich, stop playing not to lose. Because playing not to lose only guarantees one thing: you'll never win. Learn the game, understand the rules, and then play with strategy. Invest your time in knowledge before you invest your money in markets. Diversify with logic, not emotion. And when fear whispers in your ear, don't run, listen, learn, and level up. Because in the end, wealth doesn't belong to those who avoid risk. It belongs to those who manage it well. The poor stay where it's safe and wonder why life never changes. The rich step forward with wisdom and make change their advantage. And the moment you do the same, fear turns into focus and money begins to move in your favor. Most people never realize that the true difference between wealth and struggle isn't in how much you make, it's in what you own. The poor buy things that fade, while the rich buy things that pay. The poor trade money for comfort. The rich trade money for cash flow. It's not the size of your paycheck that decides your future. It's what you do with it once it arrives. You see, The poor and middle class often fall into a pattern that feels right but leads them wrong. They work hard, they earn, and then they reward themselves. A new car, a bigger TV, a nicer vacation. And while that feels good for a moment, it doesn't build anything. The pleasure ends the moment the payment begins. The rich, on the other hand, understand a different kind of pleasure. The pleasure of ownership, not consumption. They buy things that buy more things. When I was young, I wanted nice things just like anyone else. But one day, a wise man told me something I never forgot. He said, "Never buy your luxury first. Let your assets buy it for you." That one idea changed my entire financial direction. I learned that if I wanted the car, I needed to own something that pays for the car. If I wanted the house, I needed to own something that funds the house. Because the goal wasn't to have more stuff, the goal was to have more freedom. The rich think in terms of ownership. They understand that every dollar has a job, and if it's not working, it's wasting. So they buy assets, things that produce income or appreciate in value. Real estate that generates rent, stocks that pay dividends, businesses that create cash flow, even intellectual property, books, courses, patents, anything that pays them again and again for work done once. The poor, on the other hand, often mistake liabilities for assets. They say, "My car is my asset," but if it takes money out of your pocket every month, that's not an asset, that's a liability wearing a nice coat. The difference is simple. If it pays you, it's an asset. If you pay for it, it's a liability. And until you understand that distinction, wealth will always seem like a mystery. The rich avoid debt for consumption. They know that debt can be a tool, but only if it builds value. Debt that buys assets can work for you. Debt that buys pleasure works against you. The poor often borrow to feel rich today and wake up poorer tomorrow. The rich borrow to become richer tomorrow, not to look richer today. Now, that doesn't mean you can't enjoy life. It means you enjoy it responsibly. The rich still buy nice cars, go on vacations, and live in beautiful homes, but they let their assets pay for those luxuries, not their salaries. Their mindset is simple. First build the engine, then enjoy the ride. When you begin to think like that, something powerful happens. You stop chasing money and start positioning it. You start asking better questions, not what can I buy, but what can I build, not what can I afford, but what will this return? That's how the rich think, not in terms of income, but in terms of ownership. They know that wealth isn't built by earning more, it's built by owning more of what earns. And the moment you shift from consumer to creator, from spender to investor, from earner to owner, your financial life changes forever. Because at the end of the day, the goal isn't to look rich, it's to be rich. And being rich isn't about money in your pocket. It's about assets in your name that work harder than you ever could. When you own things that pay, life begins to pay you back. There's a simple rule in life. When emotion goes up, intelligence goes down. And nowhere is that more true than in the world of money. You see, the poor obey emotion while the rich master it. The poor buy when they feel excited and sell when they feel afraid. The rich buy when the numbers make sense and sell when the time is right. The poor react, the rich respond. And that one difference, emotional control, can mean the difference between wealth and worry. Most people lose not because they lack opportunity, but because they lack control. They let emotion dictate their choices. A good day makes them confident. A bad day makes them panic. They invest because everyone's talking about it, and they sell because everyone's afraid. That's not a strategy, that's surrender. Wealth doesn't come to those who chase feelings. It comes to those who manage them. I remember a man I once mentored who called me in a panic when the market dropped. Should I sell? he asked. Everything's falling. I told him, the only thing that's falling faster than the market is your confidence. See, his problem wasn't the market, it was his mindset. He was letting emotion make decisions logic should have made long ago. The rich understand that markets move in cycles, just like seasons. You don't sell your farm because it's winter. You prepare for the spring. But the poor see every storm as the end, while the rich see it as a season to endure or an opportunity to plant more seeds. The truth is, money doesn't respond to panic. It responds to patience. The rich develop the discipline to act only in clarity, never in haste. Before every decision, they pause. They check their facts. They ask themselves, is this logic or emotion speaking? And if it's emotion, they wait, because they know that calm creates clarity. One of the best habits you can build is tracking your spending. Not just what you buy, but why you buy it. You'll start to notice patterns. Emotional spending, impulsive upgrades, the I deserve this trap. That journal becomes a mirror, and when you look into it honestly, you'll see how often emotion tries to control your wallet. Once you see it, you can change it. And here's something even more powerful. Practice gratitude. It's the antidote to emotional spending. When you appreciate what you have, you stop chasing what you don't need. Gratitude stabilizes the heart so reason can guide the mind. When you're grateful, you're grounded. And grounded people make better financial decisions. Wealth is built by calm minds and clear hearts. It's built by those who can stand still when others run, who can think while others react. The poor say, I felt like it, and pay the price. The rich say, I planned for it, and reap the reward. At the end of the day, emotion is a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. Feelings are human, but discipline is divine. You can't build wealth if your moods manage your money. So learn to pause before you purchase. Learn to think before you trade. And learn to trust reason over rush. Because every time you master your emotions, you give your wealth a chance to grow. True success doesn't come from reacting to life. It comes from responding to it with wisdom. When you can stay calm in chaos, focused in fear, and grateful in growth, that's when you stop chasing wealth and start becoming the kind of person who naturally attracts it. The rich and the poor don't just earn differently, they think differently about money itself. The poor see money as something to spend. The rich see money as something to grow. That's the fundamental divide. When most people receive money, they immediately start thinking, what can I buy? But the rich ask, where can I plant this so it multiplies? And that small shift in mindset changes everything. Because money is not meant to be used and forgotten, it's meant to be employed and multiplied. You've got to learn to treat every dollar as an employee. Each one has the potential to work for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The question is, are your dollars working, or are they sitting idle, wasting away in your pocket, in your home, or worse, in things that lose value the moment you buy them? Imagine running a company where half your employees sit around doing nothing. That's what most people do with their money. They waste its potential. The rich don't. They give every dollar a job to earn, to grow, to return. Early in my career, I used to spend almost everything I made. I thought success meant having more things. Nicer clothes, a better car, expensive dinners. But every time I spent, my dollars disappeared. They didn't come back. Then I met a man who told me, if you spend all your seeds, you'll never have a harvest. That line stuck with me. He taught me to start planting my dollars into opportunities that could grow, investments, education, assets that would produce income. And slowly, my perspective changed. I realized that every dollar I saved and reinvested was another seed planted for my future. The poor save out of fear of not having enough, fear of losing what they earn. But the rich save with purpose, Saving isn't about hoarding, it's about preparing capital to grow. Saving alone won't make you rich. Investing what you save will. When you reinvest profits from every income source, even small ones, you create a snowball effect. A few dollars today, properly invested, can become hundreds or thousands tomorrow. That's not magic, that's mathematics. It's the quiet miracle of compound growth. Most people underestimate the power of compounding because they're focused on instant gratification. They'd rather have a small pleasure today than a great fortune tomorrow. But the rich understand that time magnifies effort. When you put your money to work early, even modest returns multiply dramatically over decades. That's why the best day to start was yesterday, and the second best day is today. Start thinking of your money as a team of workers. If you send them out into good businesses, solid investments, or assets that pay dividends, they'll bring back more workers for you. But if you keep firing them on luxuries and liabilities, you'll always have to go back to work yourself. And that's the tragedy for many. They work for money their entire lives because they never learned to make money work for them. So here's the challenge. The next time you earn, before you spend a single dollar, ask yourself, can I send some of this to work? Maybe it's an investment account, a side venture, or your own education. Because education is also an investment, it multiplies your earning power for life. Wealth isn't about how much you make. It's about how much you keep and how hard it works for you. Every rich person learned to turn money into a servant, while the poor remained its slave. So learn to plant your dollars wisely. Reinvest your profits consistently, and give your money a mission. If you do, one day you'll look around and realize you no longer work for money. It's been working for you all along. Most people drift through life waiting for something to change. The economy, the boss, the government, maybe even luck. But the truth is, life doesn't hand out wealth to those who wait. It gives it to those who design. The rich live intentionally. They craft their financial lives the same way an architect crafts a building, with vision, precision, and patience. The poor, on the other hand, live by default. They let the tides of circumstance decide where they end up. And if you let the winds blow you around, don't be surprised when you never reach the shore you dreamed of. I remember early in my journey, I used to say, I hope things will get better. But one day, a mentor said, don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. That hit me. Hope is not a strategy. Design is. I realized that I couldn't just hope my finances would improve. I had to plan for them to. The rich don't leave their future to chance. They draw it out like a map, step by step. They know what they want, why they want it, and how they're going to get there. Think about it like this. If you were building a house, would you just start laying bricks and hope it turns into a mansion? Of course not. You'd have a blueprint, a vision of what you're creating. Wealth works the same way. You need a plan, a structure, a mission. Without it, you're just reacting to bills, opportunities, and emergencies, never really in control. That's why one of the best exercises you can do is to write a personal wealth mission statement. Something that captures your purpose for building wealth, not just for the money, but for what it represents. Freedom, legacy, impact. Once you have that mission, you need targets, real, measurable goals. Don't just say, I want to be rich. That's a wish. Say, I want to have $100,000 invested by this date. Or I want my business to produce passive income equal to my living expenses within 5 years. Clarity creates focus, and focus creates movement. The poor avoid specifics because specifics demand accountability. The rich embrace them because they lead to results. But even the best design needs maintenance. That's where review comes in. Every 90 days, the rich pause to reflect. What's working, what's not? Where am I spending too much? Where can I invest more effectively? This is how they stay aligned with their plan. The poor rarely review their finances. They only react when something breaks. The rich stay ahead because they track and adjust continuously. They treat wealth building as a living system that grows with them. I've seen people who make six figures and stay broke because they live by default, spending whatever comes in with no plan for the future. And I've seen people with modest incomes create real wealth because they live by design, directing every dollar with purpose. The difference isn't income, it's intention. So take time to sit down and design your financial future. Don't just earn, engineer. Write your wealth mission. Set targets that stretch you. Review your progress regularly, because the greatest tragedy is not failing to reach your goals, it's failing to set them in the first place. When you start living by design, life stops being a series of reactions and starts becoming a creation. You move from hope to direction, from survival to structure, and one day you'll look at your life, your business, your bank account, your freedom, and realize that every bit of it was built by design, not by default. I've often said, life will keep giving you the same lesson until you learn it. And nowhere is that truer than with money. The poor call it bad luck. The deal went wrong. The market turned. The economy crashed. But the rich, they call it bad planning. They study the pattern, they find the cause, and they make sure it doesn't happen again. You see, life is a teacher, but it charges tuition, and the price of the lesson depends on whether you pay attention. When I first started out, I made plenty of money mistakes. I bought things that looked good instead of things that were good. I invested in excitement instead of education. And every time I lost, I thought, maybe I'm just unlucky. But over time, I realized it wasn't bad luck. It was bad judgment repeated too many times. Once I started studying my patterns, I found my blind spots. I wasn't losing money because the world was unfair. I was losing it because I wasn't learning. The rich don't just move on from mistakes. They mine them. Every loss is a lesson. Every mistake is data. If you look at your financial history, you'll find that most of your pain points have a rhythm. Maybe every time you get a raise, your expenses rise too. Maybe you chase hot investments when you feel behind. Maybe you loan money to friends because you're afraid to say no. Those aren't accidents, they're patterns. And patterns, once identified, can be changed. The poor repeat their history because they never review it. The rich create their future because they study it. That's why I tell people, audit your last 5 money mistakes. Write them down. What caused them? Was it haste? Emotion? Lack of research? Every mistake has a root. Find it. Because if you don't, it'll keep planting itself in your future. Once you identify those roots, turn them into rules. If emotion caused your loss, make a rule. I never make big financial decisions in emotional states. If haste cost you, make a rule. I always sleep on major decisions. If ignorance burned you, make a rule. I only invest in what I understand. Wisdom is simply well-documented experience. Another powerful tool is a financial journal. Not just tracking numbers, but decisions. Write down why you did something, what you expected, and what happened. Over time, you'll start to see your behavioral fingerprints, your tendencies, your triggers, your strengths. That's the kind of self-awareness the rich live by. Because once you understand your own habits, you can predict and improve your outcomes. I remember one time a friend told me, I keep getting stuck at the same income level. I said, then you're not learning You're looping. Every time he earned more, he found a new way to spend more. The pattern wasn't income, it was indiscipline. Once he fixed the behavior, his income began to grow and stay. So don't just live your financial story, study it. Don't repeat the same mistakes and call it fate. History only repeats for those who refuse to reflect. The rich understand that progress is built on pattern recognition. They look back to move forward wiser. The poor see mistakes as punishment. The rich see them as professors. And when you start learning from your patterns instead of running from them, you'll discover that wisdom compounds just like money, quietly, steadily, and powerfully, until your future is no longer built on chance, but on clarity. If you were to ask me the greatest investment I ever made, I wouldn't say it was in real estate, or in business, or even in the markets. It was in me, in learning, growing, and developing the kind of mind that could attract and sustain wealth. You see, the rich understand something the poor often overlook. You can't pour from an empty cup. The world pays you not for what you have, but for what you've become. And the only way to become more is to invest in yourself first. I remember when I was young and broke, I used to say, when I make more money, I'll start learning. But the truth is, I wasn't broke because I didn't have money. I was broke because I didn't have the mindset to make or manage it. Then I met a man who changed everything for me. He said, "Don't wish it were easier, wish you were better." That line hit me like lightning. It made me realize wealth doesn't start with your wallet, it starts with your wisdom. The poor wait for money to grow before they grow. The rich grow first, and that's why their money grows. So I began dedicating a portion of every dollar I earned to my own education. I bought books, attended seminars, listened to tapes, yes, tapes, while driving, walking, even eating lunch. My car became a classroom. And slowly I started noticing something remarkable. The more I learned, the more opportunities I could see. The same world that once looked limited began to look abundant, because my perspective had changed. When you expand your mind, your world expands with it. The problem is, most people spend more money maintaining their car than maintaining their character. They'll spend thousands keeping their phone up to date, but not their philosophy. They upgrade everything around them except themselves. But the rich know, if you grow, everything around you grows. Your income is a reflection of your value in the marketplace, and your value is a reflection of your mindset, your skills, and your ability to solve problems. One of the best financial rules I ever adopted was simple. 10% of everything I make goes to personal growth. Books, courses, mentors, experiences, anything that sharpens my thinking. And that small portion has produced returns far greater than any stock or property ever could. Because when you develop yourself, you don't just increase your earning potential, you increase your decision-making power. You stop chasing opportunity and start attracting it. And I'll tell you this, when you begin investing in yourself, the world starts to respond differently to you. You walk with more certainty, you speak with more clarity, and you handle life with more wisdom. That confidence translates into better relationships, better opportunities, and better results. The poor often ask, what if I spend all this money on learning and it doesn't pay off? The rich ask, what if I don't and I stay the same? So the next time you think about where to invest, remember, the safest, highest return investment is the one you make in yourself. Before you upgrade your car, upgrade your mind. Before you expand your house, expand your skill set. Because once your mindset rises, everything else follows. The truth is, wealth doesn't start in your bank account, it starts in your belief system. And the day you decide that your growth is worth more than your comfort, you'll unlock the one investment that never loses value. You. Most people chase income like it's the finish line, but the rich know that income is only the starting point. You can have a high income and still be broke, just like you can make an average income and still be wealthy. Why? Because the difference isn't in how much you earn, it's in how much you own. You see, income feeds you, but assets free you. A paycheck is temporary, ownership is permanent. And that's why the rich focus on net worth, not just the numbers on a monthly slip of paper. Early in my career, I met a man who earned 5 times what I did. Yet he was constantly stressed about bills. Every dollar that came in had somewhere to go, new gadgets, bigger cars, weekend indulgences. And then, one day, I realized something powerful. He wasn't working to get ahead. He was working to keep up. He had confused lifestyle with wealth. The rich understand that true freedom comes not from what you earn, but from what remains after you've earned it. What you've built, what you've kept, and what you've made work for you even when you're not working. The poor and middle class often measure progress by the size of their paycheck. The wealthy measure progress by the growth of their net worth. They ask different questions. Instead of how much did I make this month, they ask, how much did I keep? How much did I multiply? Because the truth is, a high income can vanish overnight. A job lost, a market crash, a medical bill. But assets, when built wisely, outlive circumstance. The secret is to think in ownership, not in wages. Own a portion of what you help build. Own shares in the economy. Own something that earns while you sleep. Every month, you should be building equity. In property, in a business, in investments. And at the same time, you should be reducing what you owe. Wealth is not about accumulation alone, it's also about subtraction. Reducing debt is as powerful as increasing income, because every dollar you don't owe is a dollar that works for you. That's why I tell people, track your net worth as carefully as the wealthy track theirs. Write it down, review it often. Not to obsess over numbers, but to cultivate awareness. When you track something, it grows. When you ignore it, it disappears. Set yearly goals not just for what you'll earn, but for what you'll own. Maybe this year you'll increase your savings by $10,000. Maybe you'll eliminate a loan. Maybe you'll buy your first income-producing asset. Small steps, consistently taken, compound into financial independence. The rich know that income is only the fuel, but net worth is the engine. That's what gives you control. That's what lets you retire early, sleep peacefully, and give generously. Because when you own assets that generate income, you shift from working for money to letting money work for you. So don't measure your success by your paycheck. Measure it by your progress toward freedom. Don't celebrate every raise with a new toy. Celebrate it with a new investment. Because one day, your income will stop. Your energy will fade. But your assets, if built wisely, will continue to work day after day, year after year, long after you've stopped showing up. And that's the real goal of wealth. Not just to make a living, but to build a life that keeps giving long after you've stopped working for it. Most people use money to prove something. The rich use it to do something. There's a difference. One group buys to be seen, the other invests to make a difference. One tries to look wealthy, the other quietly becomes it. That's because money, in its purest form, is a tool, a means to build, to grow, to serve, to create freedom. But the moment you turn it into a trophy, a symbol of status or self-worth, it begins to control you. And once it controls you, you're no longer rich, you're just expensive. I've met people who spent their whole lives trying to look successful. They bought the car before they built the business, the watch before the wealth, the image before the independence. And yet, behind the appearance was anxiety, Because when your identity depends on what you own, your peace depends on keeping it. And that's not freedom, that's fear in disguise. The rich understand this truth deeply. Money is a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. It should work for you, not weigh you down. It should serve your mission, not feed your ego. I remember early in my journey, when I first started earning real money, I made the same mistake. I thought success meant having what others admired. I bought things I didn't need to impress people who weren't even paying attention. But one night, while looking at a pile of bills for things I'd barely used, it hit me. I had let money lead instead of letting purpose lead. From that day forward, I made a decision. Money would never dictate my direction again. I would tell it where to go. It would never tell me where to stay. You see, wealth has no meaning without purpose. If you don't define why you want it, someone else will define how you should spend it. The rich define their why before they define their budget. Maybe your why is freedom, to spend time with your family, travel the world, or fund a cause you believe in. Maybe it's legacy, to build something that outlives you. Whatever it is, that purpose becomes your compass. It keeps you grounded when greed whispers and focused when distraction calls. That's where minimalism becomes a strength, not a sacrifice. Minimalism doesn't mean owning less. It means being owned by less. It means every purchase passes through a filter of purpose. Does it serve my goals? Does it add value to my mission? Or is it just noise that looks like success? The poor chase consumption. The rich chase contribution. And when you master that distinction, wealth becomes lighter, cleaner, freer. Money should expand your life, not complicate it. It should create margin for peace, not pressure for image. If your money doesn't give you time, options, and impact, you're not using it right. And that's where the rich focus, not on appearance, but on effect. They use their resources to create opportunity for themselves, for others, for the world. They invest in businesses that employ, in ideas that inspire, in causes that outlast them. They understand that the ultimate return on money is not just profit, but purpose. So let your money serve your vision, not your vanity. Let it build freedom, not fences. Because in the end, no one remembers the car you drove, they remember the difference you made. The goal isn't to die with trophies of wealth, but to live with tools of impact. When your money becomes a servant to your purpose, you don't just grow richer, you grow wiser, freer, and far more fulfilled. As I bring this message to a close, I want to remind you, wealth is not an accident, and poverty is not just bad luck. Both are built, one by design and the other by neglect. The difference lies not in opportunity, but in awareness. You see, the real game of wealth is played in the mind long before it's reflected in the bank account. The rich don't wait for a raise to start thinking differently. They think differently first, and the raise follows. You must begin to think of money not as a mystery, but as a mirror. It reflects who you are, your habits, your philosophy, your patience, your fears. If you constantly find yourself saying, "I can't afford that," you're programming your brain to stop searching for solutions. The rich don't say, "I can't afford it." They ask, "How can I afford it?" That one question changes everything because it shifts you from victim to creator, from scarcity to strategy. The poor wait for the right conditions, the rich create them. The poor fear loss, the rich fear stagnation. It's not the money that makes you rich. It's the mindset that makes the money. And that mindset begins with personal responsibility. You can't change the economy, but you can change your philosophy. You can't control the markets, but you can control your preparation. You can't decide the opportunities that come, but you can decide the readiness you bring when they arrive. That's why personal growth is not a luxury. It's a duty. You must grow into the kind of person that wealth feels safe staying with, because money doesn't go to people who want it. It goes to people who can handle it. I learned early in my journey that money is simply attracted to competence and confidence. If you build both, wealth will eventually find its way to you. But competence doesn't come from wishing. It comes from working, learning, applying, adjusting, and repeating. Confidence doesn't come from affirmations. It comes from evidence. You prove to yourself through small wins that you are capable of discipline, delayed gratification, and direction. Every good financial decision compounds not just in your account, but in your character. So as you walk away from this message, I urge you, don't just listen, implement. Don't just be inspired, act. Inspiration without execution is entertainment. And you're not here to be entertained, you're here to evolve. Make this the day you draw the line and say, from this moment forward, I will think and act like the rich. Create a 10-year vision that excites you. Build habits that align with that vision. Educate yourself daily. Save a little, invest a little, and serve a lot. And most importantly, remember this: wealth isn't about having more, it's about becoming more. Because when you become more valuable, you attract more value. The goal is not just to have money, but to become the kind of person who would never lose it, not because of luck, but because of wisdom. So, go build your wealth. Go build your mind. Go build your future. The world doesn't need another person chasing money. It needs more people creating value. And when you do that, you'll never have to chase wealth again. It will start chasing you.